Pfen, and her presentation is De Aquí, Allá, different discourses on diaspora. Differentiating, excuse me, discourse on the diaspora.
All right, hi everyone. I hope you can see my screen. Yeah, let me know if you don't, because that would be bad. But hi everybody, hola todos. My name is Pfen, and I'm an anthropology major at UMass Boston. So a bit about myself, I was born and raised in Malaysia, but I currently live in Boston. As you can see, this is my bedroom in Boston. And my research today is on the Puerto Rican diaspora. So some parts of this presentation might be in Spanish. Some of you might be wondering, so what is a person like me doing research on the Puerto Rican diaspora? I would say my research is quite personal to myself, in the sense that I am a member of the diaspora, the Malaysian diaspora here in the States, and my family has been members of the Chinese diaspora in Malaysia. So we're all dispersed peoples, and all of us have been asked at one point, de aquí or allá, like, are you from here or are you from there? And hence why I would like to talk on the differentiating discourse on the diaspora, specifically the Puerto Rican stateside diaspora today. So my research question is, how have discourses about the US-based Puerto Rican diaspora changed in Puerto Rico since Hurricane Maria? So Hurricane Maria was a time period where we saw unprecedented mobilization of the diaspora. So you have people from outside Puerto Rico helping the people within Puerto Rico, even though the disaster wasn't affecting themselves. You know, so with this huge movement within the diaspora, we also see like a huge movement of ideas about the diaspora. So how have perspectives around the Puerto Rican diaspora changed around Maria? Or more importantly, how do we find out? In this research, I will be utilizing semantic network analyses of discourse towards the Puerto Rican stateside diaspora, and we'll see them over time. So meaning pre, during, and post Hurricane Maria. We've sectioned them into 3 parts like that. So this is all great, but why does it matter? I would say that this data gives us invaluable insight to the phenomena of mass migrations of Puerto Ricans out from Puerto Rico as seen from recent years. So in case you didn't know, there are actually more Puerto Ricans outside of Puerto Rico than in Puerto Rico, which is kind of crazy, but you know, it happened over time. And it could also answer questions like, how might this affect future migration patterns? And how could this change continental American and Puerto Rican politics? You could ask other questions like how this influence diaspora relations, and this in turn could use to be to ask how does this affect the discourse around the diaspora again. For my research, I'm using the established framework of diaspora relations as my theoretical framework. So diaspora relations is examining the identities of diaspora through other like through media discourse, political landscape amongst other forces of society. These are the few key literatures that I've reviewed for my research. This one by Garvey Lundy is particularly insightful, as it also utilizes media reports to contextualize how the Haitian diaspora reacted to the 2010 earthquake. All right, so methods and data collection. So how I collected the data was we took most of our data from Spanish language Puerto Rican based news outlets. So for example, El Nuevo Día, El Vocero, 80 Grados, Primera Hora, etc., etc. All in all, there were 43 opinion pieces, op-eds and commentaries There were also some interview data conducted by the research team that I'm part of, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we could not collect as much as we wanted. So this is a primarily secondary source, quantitative and qualitative research piece. Later on, I had the fun job of data cleanup, which was removing a lot of the formatting in these articles, consolidating key terms, creating stop word lists, and trying to lemmatize and stem words as well to kind of consolidate them and have them under like a root word, for example. And then after that, everything was inputted into a software called Wordage, which is a semantic network analysis tool that defines co-occurrence of terms within 3 word positions. So for example, like diaspora, and then 3 words away, there's éxodo. So these are the kind of words that are being talked about when the diaspora is mentioned. That's how we're essentially looking at this research. And lastly, I use Gephi to visualize the semantic network, which looks like this. So this is a semantic network. As you can see, there's like a cluster in the middle. That's what we call the lexical core. The words and bubbles are nodes, and these links in between them are called edges. So the bigger the node, the more salient the word, and the thicker the edges, the stronger the co-occurrence between words. So, pre-Maria results. Pre-Maria, the word diaspora was actually not part of the lexical core. This, what you can see, is like kind of like a branch out of it. So it kind of shows, it suggests that diaspora was not a very salient theme in commentary, including like with a couple of the interviews we conducted. The term diaspora had to be defined to the interviewees because it was just not the most prominent theme when you talk about Puerto Rico. It was not on the top of their minds. However, there was a pattern of thinking where people thought that the diaspora has voting rights. As you can see here, there's voto en derecho, so voting rights, and they are still considered part of the Puerto Rican nation, as indicated by nuestra diaspora, like our diaspora. And then going into the period when Maria happened, which was September 2017 to December, you can see that the note huracán, hurricane, has a much bigger prominence. It was when the hurricane was happening, obviously, and when diaspora activation was also at its height. So other observations include the proximity of diaspora to Puerto Rico and Puerto Rican. So Puerto Rican indicating everyone, Puerto Riqueños, Puerto Riqueñas, etc., suggesting a growing, a closer belonging to the Puerto Rican nation. Other notable observation was the growing note of no, indicating a degree of deprivation and scarcity during this time, because a lot of people didn't have resources to like electricity, to water, a lot of things, but also resilience. If you see closely enough, this no quito means I am not gonna quit, I'm not gonna take myself out, you know, so a strong sense of resilience within the Puerto Rican people. And post-Maria, which were data taken around January 2018 to about now, shows the recuperation of Maria. So this is the semantic network. Well, it's a part of the semantic network. It was a really big convoluted one this time. So this is a part of it, and it shows kind of like the time of recuperation of Maria, but also a time of like a major political and health crisis. So you see more saliency of terms such as like pandemia, coronavirus, Donald Trump, and Rosselló renuncia. So you can also see nueva diaspora, which could point to the growing diaspora in the States post-Hurricane Maria. And that is also related to this giant note here, no, which I mentioned was linked with like scarcity and deprivation. It was because a lot of the people had to become La Nueva Diaspora because they had to flee Puerto Rico because of lack of resources. And also there was a huge brain drain, a huge like exodus of professionals, healthcare workers, etc. And for the first time, we also see diaspora linked with politik, which could either suggest the politics of diaspora identity, políticas, policies advocated by the diaspora, or the political power of the diaspora as a whole. In closing, I would like to say this one quote from an interview we had. When this person was asked what does he or she think about the diaspora, they said, ahora me da igual, si te vas bien, si no también, pero no veo ninguno mejor que el otro, which in my opinion kind of means like, suggests the closing of the disparity within the Puerto Rican national imagination, the closing of the disparity between the diaspora, which is a gente de allá, and the puertorriqueños de acá. It's a breach. They're coming together. It's a form of unity to me. So in conclusion, the salience and prominence of the diaspora within the Puerto Rican discourse has certainly changed and increased over time, as shown in shifting semantic associations and the key term diaspora being more and more embedded within the lexical core of the semantic networks. And thank you so much for listening. Muchas gracias por escuchar. Special thanks to my advisor, Dr. Rosalie Negron, my family and friends back home, and also to the NSF research team who helped with the interviews. I couldn't have done this without you guys. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Is that feedback? No? Okay, I'm hearing feedback. Thank you very much. That was excellent. And I learned something new with some of the technology and software that you were using. So that's great. I want to give the floor over to folks, and I bet there are some questions again, as with before. And if not, then I have questions. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand. And I will get to you. So I'm going to go ahead and start things off then. Discussant privilege. So I noted as you started, you talked about your own experience with a variety of diasporas. So I'm curious if you were to take the findings to one of the diasporas that you are more intimately involved with, how it would play. So if you could sort of talk through that. And so one of the things that I wondered is there something about language? Because clearly you have some, high skill in terms of working with different languages. Is there something linguistic? Is it something that's very specific to the type of event that was leading to more diasporic dispersion? So, so talk through that, because I was curious.
I think for me personally, it's just been like, it's growing up in Malaysia. There have been a lot of people who left Malaysia, and it's always like, oh, you're leaving Malaysia because Malaysia's not good. Like you don't see a future here, or there's no political future and stuff like that. It's always this kind of like negative connotation and a positive connotation with the diaspora, because the diaspora in itself carries such a privilege. We are privileged enough to have the resources to move, to relocate. And so I guess from my perspective, I really enjoyed doing this research because it just taught me that there's so many ways in which the diaspora can be viewed, you know, and there's so many ways in which the diaspora can help the homeland if they feel a sense of connection still back to the homeland. And I think that's how I'm trying to navigate through this diasporic experience of my own, is that how can I actively help improve Malaysia? How can I give back to this community that, you know, born and raised me for so long, and that I'm so grateful to. And I just want to find ways in which I can be a useful Malaysian.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Looking around the gallery. Well, Pfen, in my opinion, I think you have already, you're well on your way to being a useful Malaysian, as well as a useful Massachusettsian and all of those other things. So thank you for your work.
Thank you so much.
And I hope you continue it. So I am going to then move on to our third and